All right, welcome back here to the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast. I'm so humbled that you'd be here today. If this is your first time listening, thanks for pressing play. You pressed play on a good one. I think this is going to be really good. I'm excited about today's guest. And if this is your 100th time back here, I'm just so humbled. I mean, we were talking pre-interview here. This is not an easy podcast to listen to. We're going to be on the mic here today for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Heck, with this guy, I could go 4 hours with this guy all day because he's one of the most inventive, creative, most awesome people that I know in this profession. So just so thankful that you're back here today to listen. So let's get into it. We're going to talk to the new director of track and field at the University of Illinois. It's funny that we're doing this on Zoom because he's like, I don't know, a mile down the road. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Petros Kyprianou. Petros, how are you, sir?
Hey, Mike, I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we could have, you're so busy, but we could have done this in person, but you're so busy, man. It's hard to get some time from you.
Yeah, it's nice. I can literally bike to you.
Yeah, see, the opposite is not true. I cannot bike to you. I tried biking. I used to live like, I don't know, maybe 2.5 miles from the factory when I first moved here. And I thought, I should bike to work. Like that's what like good, healthy, energetic people do, right? I don't know if I got too excited and like went too fast to begin with. I didn't even make it halfway. I had to turn around. My now wife was my girlfriend and fiance at the time. I come back in and just fall on the floor. And she's like, what happened? She thought like I got hit by a car or something. And I was like, I can't make it. I called in late for work that day.
Oh my gosh.
So you will not see me biking anywhere. We weren't supposed to do an embarrassing story about me to kick this off. This is about you, my friend. Okay, Petros. So I wasn't kidding. I've known you for a long time. Consider you a dear friend as well as, of course, a customer. You're so good to us, and we're so humbled by that. And I mean that. We could go 4 hours because your story is so interesting. You've accomplished so much, and you've surrounded yourself with so many people. But we do have a time limit today because you're so busy. So let's hop right in here, man. At some point, and I know you were an athlete, but at some point, coaching switched for you. It switched from something that was done to you. Hey, Petros, go do this, go lift that, etc. And somewhere along the line, it had to switch in your brain like, oh, wait a minute, I could be a coach. Like this could actually be my profession. Where does coaching begin for you as an idea of a career?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question because it just came very naturally. It was one day, I believe I was maybe 16 or 17 years old. And, I started as a javelin thrower. I used to play volleyball in high school, where I grew up, men's volleyball is pretty big. So play volleyball, then, I would throw the javelin in the spring. But I was good, but nothing great. So between 16 and 17, I kind of got interested into pole vaulting. So I had this good friend of mine that he was a teammate of mine, and actually he lives in New York. He's a real estate agent, Socrates. He's like, hey, let me show you how to pole vault. So he kind of walked me through how to just hang on the pole and go across the pit and all that. And I kind of like that interaction. And then a few weeks down the road, there was a kid that wanted to pick the pole vault, and there was nobody around to show him. So I started kind of doing what Socrates did to me. And that was very enjoyable, but I never really, it was very natural because seeing that kid going from like, I don't know, 5 feet to 8, 9 feet within an hour, was pretty satisfying and really intriguing to me. But I kind of just put it on the side because, like everybody that age wants to go to the Olympics and, be a great decathlete. I was a decathlete in the making at the time. So as the years went by, I always helped, other teammates, even athletes, teammates of mine that they were really elite athletes, and they wanted me to help them out and, just catch their steps or tell them how their form looked like. And that interaction slowly developed into, oh, why don't you just come and watch me in Barcelona when I go over there without my coach? I'll pay for your ticket. And I was like, okay, so we can Barcelona is not a bad deal. So I'll go over there, watch a high jumper, perform. A friend of mine, we were teammates, and he does well. And then I started liking him more and more. So here we are right around 2000, where I was a senior in college. And that's where, I had a lot of injuries, and this idea of me going to the Olympics was not, a reality, just because, I was a very ambitious guy, very, very technical. I was one of these guys that have perfect techniques, but no horsepower. And you do need some sort of horsepower to go to the Olympics in a decathlon. So anyway, the hard decision came, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just try this coaching thing. And I've done it for free. I've done it for little to no money, and it was very, very satisfying. I'm not gonna lie. So that's how I started.
Now, you mentioned, first of all, was your teammate's name Socrates? That was his name?
Socrates,
Oh
yeah.
man, that's I love that. Yeah, I'm tired of boring names. I've lived with a boring name
Ah,
my whole life, Mike, and I'm surrounded by Scotts and Steves and Robs. I do have a guy named River, which I think is cool because
oh
that's a
yeah.
unique name. You know River,
Oh yeah.
but Petros is unique. Socrates is that's
Yeah.
amazing. I love that.
You
Uh,
can't be more Greek than that, right?
Exactly. Well, okay, that's what we're missing. The punchline here is, tell us, you didn't grow up in, as a former coach of at Georgia, and you lived in Florida. You didn't grow up in Southeast America and U.S. Tell us actually where you grew up. We kind of missed the whole punchline there.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the southeast is common. I did grow up in the southeast corner of Europe, a little bitty island of Cyprus. It's an island nation, Greek. There's two sides, Greek and Turkish. I grew up on the Greek side.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful island, very, very diverse. It's like in the crossroads of Africa, Europe, Middle East. You got a lot of uh, folks there from literally China, Asia,
Hmm.
all the way to Australia, and a great place to grow up and be open to every culture. Very great food and all that. So I grew up in a small town called Limassol, by the port, not the so glamorous areas, but very, very proud of my upbringings, just because it kind of teaches you a lesson here and there, and learn how to appreciate little things, and
Hmm.
strive for excellence in everything. Borderline dangerous place, but we had everything we needed. We had each other, and we made it through. But and when I was 17, I went to the military, which is a mandatory service over there.
Okay.
I served for a year. Very interesting training and experience there. They gave us training in different things, and they put me on the buffer zone. Cyprus is divided into two, so the Turks basically occupying the
Hmm.
37% of the northern part of Cyprus. So there's still a little bit issue there. So you got the Turks guarding the north side, you got the Greek guarding the south side. So I was placed in the border, where you're basically a sniper, and you're not. Now listen, I'm 17, 18 years old, and I'm told if somebody crosses, gets into the buffer zone, you're supposed to shoot that person. I never shot anybody, but that was our, I guess, job.
Did you
So
did you
you're up in the mountains. I have pictures. Training, throwing the discus in the mountains and all that. So I was training up there, but it was very interesting. Kind of when you're 17, you go to the military. When you come out, you grow up pretty quickly. So I went to college after that. So I was not your typical freshman
I
in
can only
college.
imagine you prayed every day, please no one come into the zone. Just stay where you are. Please don't make me make this decision, man. And you're right. I could imagine making that decision as a 40-something-year-old, a 17. At 17, I didn't know, I didn't know if I wanted to brush my teeth every morning. I'm 17, dude. What am I thinking, right? Whew,
Yeah.
okay. Well, so tell us a little bit before we jump to college and eventually coming over here to the States. Here in America, we sometimes can rightfully complain about lack of facilities. Not every high school has a facility. Maybe not every high school has a great track, and same with college, et cetera. But we have a great system, right? We have high school, we have college, we have USATF and AAU junior all the way through senior. Like, we have a fairly good support system. What is it like where you're growing up in Cyprus for track and field, as far as the opportunity to do track and things like that on different levels?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's almost like a third world country, especially in the '90s, early '90s when I started. We were training on dirt, basically. I wouldn't even call it cinder track, which gives you a little bit of traction. But Cyprus is very the climate and the terrain is very similar to Southern California, where it's pretty dry.
Mm.
It doesn't rain a lot, but it's like semi-tropical. So the good thing is not mud, it was dirt. So it was pretty, use those big spikes we use now for throwing the javelin on grass. So those were our spikes, sprinting and long jumping and all that,
Wow.
and pole vaulting and all that good stuff. And then as the years went by, the only track surface existed in soccer fields. Now, soccer over there is big, as you know, in Europe.
Sure.
So that was like a sacred moment for us to even be on that facility training. And only the elite of the elites, about 5 athletes in the whole island, were allowed to train in there. So
Wow.
as you gotten better and got a little more connections per se, the president of the track club likes me. I got an hour of training on an actual track, which is, like a very old school. Don't picture any Mondo or any high class track like that. I mean, the rubber, just plain rubber. And, it was resurfaced once every 20 years, maybe. So that's how we grew up. But again, you grow up to appreciate a lot more, and you want more when you're here, because we're in the land of plenty, and sometimes we get caught up complaining about things, but we also know that our employers or depending where we are, they have the capability to give us what we need, and most of us are very, very lucky, extremely lucky. And but when you're coming from these humble beginnings, it does, when you go back, I always go back to that track every single time. I was actually there a couple of weeks ago recruiting, and I went over there and walked that track. It's still dirt, believe it or not.
Wow.
In the high school, yeah. Now they're like two full synthetic tracks there, which is huge for that town. But we are in 2022, and still trying to catch up with the world.
Wow, man. So talk to us about college and how did you get to the States, and why come to the States? You obviously have a lot of fondness for your home area and home country and hometown. Talk to us about that journey.
Yeah, so I went to the university in Aristotle, University of Thessaloniki in northern Greece.
Is that the Fighting Olives? What is
You could say that. They don't have mascots over there. They're
Oh,
just
really? Oh, they're missing
yeah,
out. That's the best part of college and
right,
college
exactly.
sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I really love about the U.S. system and the NCAA, that there's the spirit and the excitement about you being a part of something. Where over there, it's like, just go train and shut up and just get out of our way. So I went to that university, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, northern Greece. I studied physical education, sports science. I stayed there like a couple extra years after that. Actually, about 1 year. I worked there as a coach. I was a strength coach for a couple basketball and volleyball teams. And then I got into soccer, strength conditioning, as you know, is the big thing over there. So that was really my main profession at the beginning.
Did
I
you
was a
did you
full-time
go
strength
to
coach.
did you go to study exercise science because you knew at that point you wanted to be a coach, or were you still kind
Yes.
of open?
Yeah. So my goal was like, okay, I like this. No, actually, I was more into, I want to go and be a physical education teacher in a high school, so I can do a better job, with the sport of track and field. That was my really main idea, which evolved into full-time coaching, because I started, I was helping around, like I was telling you earlier, with teammates and friends and all that. So I will be done with my training, and then I'll be there, helping others. And then the full-time coaching thing or evolvement into coaching is when my coach at the time, he was the national coach. So I was very, very lucky to have a really good coach during my collegiate time. He basically told me, Petros, I'm sorry, you're not very good. Flat out, just like that. You're not very good. I can't train you anymore. I'm coaching Olympians. You're no good. And I appreciate that, because that's how I am. I'm not going to talk to anybody like that nowadays because, but I appreciate the fact that, hey, I can't help you anymore. But up until then, he would give me everything I needed. He was all technical and helped me a lot. And I'm very grateful to him and all my coaches. So he did the same thing to another guy that he was better than me. So I was like, you know what? Hey, Stavros, why don't I coach you? Let's just train each other, create this thing where, you know, you're better. I'm going to be like the back burner. I'm going to push you in certain events. I'm very good techniques. I can watch you better, and you have more horsepower than me. I'll give you my techniques, and then we'll go do things. So a year from that moment in 2001, I believe it was, he breaks the Greek national record at his age group, which was the U23. So we went on our first national team trip together, and that really was it for me. I was like, this is what I want to do, period. Like my very first athlete, you know, went from 6,400 points to 72. For that time and that level, that was really, really good. So I was like, you know what, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And that's how really became a full-time thing. But I always had a deep love for the weight room, the strength conditioning, speed strength. So that really provided me a salary, and track and field coaching provided me my passion and love, because there was no coaching. I was making $200 a month, being almost like a national coach. And yeah, so those two together kind of in the way helped me develop as a coach, along with a lot of great mentors and coaches I've had. But it all started in northern Greece. That's where I really got the baptism, I guess.
I like, you know, and I think it says something about you, Petros, when coach said, hey, you're just not that good. I can't coach you anymore. Because, you know, at that point, you kind of had a decision point, you know, that fork in the road, so to speak. You could have easily gotten jaded and said, well, man, this sport just sucks. I'm not good enough. My coach doesn't believe in me. Fine, I'll go do X, Y, and Z. But instead, you were like, okay, there's some reality there. That's okay. I can accept that. We're not going to be perfect at everything that we want to be perfect and good at, but I have passion for the sport and serving others. So what else can I do then? Oh, okay, I can help you. You also got cut. Well, then let's just go have an experiment and see what happens. And it ended up with this, you know, national, you know, record and going to international travel. I mean, that's quite amazing. Like I said, you could have taken a very much different turn there.
Yeah, and that's something that, you know, I always forget or not thinking is important enough to share with some of our young athletes. I mean, I've had a lot of athletes that, you know, they get to the crossroads like, man, this is too much. I got hurt. I'm no good. I'm going to quit. I'm going to go do something else. And, you know, I mean, I've had athletes that had so many, you know, bad luck. I mean, from hitting hurdles, Devin Williams, probably the best example I've had. That poor guy, I mean, you know, breaking his toe just walking, or, you know, hitting the hurdle on the underneath and falling, you know, I mean, just so many. But the guy just kept coming back and standing up. And so quitting is not really an option. What there is an option, you can take a step back, take a breather, and just, it's like an approach in the long jump. You know, sometimes your approach might not be long enough. You just need to step back and gain a little more momentum, and then the bigger jump will come. So that's an analogy I always give to athletes that struggle, that, you know, hey, I wasn't talented. I get it. Like you said, I mean, that was a reality check. And, you know, I was mad, but at the same time, I was like, you know, he's right. I mean, I'm no good. I'm not winning anything. I'm not really bringing any value. I mean, I'm not paying him. So I'm going to take all that, you know, these 4 years he gave me, like all this invaluable knowledge and experience, seeing him train Olympians and all that, and go try to do myself and better. And that's what happened.
So why the decision to come to the US? How did that come up?
So in 2003, I was, you know, 2001 to 2003, I was a full-time strength coach. That's all I did. Actually, I worked with a bunch of great teams in soccer. And that's where, you know, I met my father-in-law and my biggest mentor, met my wife and all that. And in 2003, I was kind of sick of it, like being a part of a team sport where, you know, your livelihood, your future depends on 30 guys, that you go in and they can't kick the ball into the net, and then everybody gets fired, and you're the guy that got them strong and fast, and
Right.
you get moved on, and so I just wanted, like everybody, all of us, we are in search of respect, aren't we? I mean, that's all we strive for, and when you don't have that, when you don't see it, and you pour your heart and soul into something, you're like, you know what, I gotta search for something better, and not necessarily easier, but that will give you in the end of the day, maybe end of the decade. For me, the time, it was not, I was never in a hurry. I was never trying to do something that, it was not done before or anything spectacular. I just wanted to do simple things in a very high level. And so in 2003, I decided, I'm going to go to the US. So in 2004, actually January 2nd, 2004, I, decided I'm going to go and do my master's. In 2003, started basically talking to Dr. Nick Sturgeon, a Greek professor at the University of Nebraska-Omaha, where, he's one of the world-renowned biomechanists. So biomechanics is something that really intrigued me since day one. That, the study of a human movement, that was just, in love with it. And so he offered me, hey, we can get you provisionally admitted, because I was not, I barely spoke English at the time. I was trying really hard.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was not, barely spoke English. So he's like, hey, you gotta go and pass the GRE. And here's a guy can barely speak English, gotta, get a GRE score and get into master's degree. So long story short, I managed to get provisionally accepted. I go over there, and again, no scholarships, nothing. And here's a guy that had about $2,000 in his pocket. No, I'm not going to tell you I had $20 in my pocket like these old folks say. Right, it was $2,000. So $2,000, you can do something.
Sure.
So it was basically good enough for about a semester's tuition at the time.
Okay.
Not including, housing, meals, and all that. So a really good friend of mine that we went to school together in Greece, Doctor, now he's a professor at Kyprianou-University, former high jumper, Dimitris Katsavelis. He let me sleep on his floor in his apartment. So that's how my first 6 months will look like. So the guy was very kind to, share his car, food, everything with me. And the funny thing is, as I started doing my master's there, in about 6 months, I was volunteering at the UNO, Nebraska-Omaha's track and soccer teams. I was helping out in the weight room and track. So in about 6 months from the day I came to the US, they offered me an assistant coaching position at the time, paying around $24,000 a year. And to me, I was like, I'll call my girlfriend, now wife, at the time, I was like, I'm rich, we're rich, 24 grand a year. That's the most money we've ever seen, literally. So I was the happiest person alive, I'm not gonna lie to you. So we started that, and obviously one thing led to another. And then Dimitris, the guy that helped me and share his house with me, his girlfriend at the time, now wife, was a 5,500 point heptathlete. So we brought her over, and she competed for UNO, and she breaks the Division II heptathlon record that one year. So I'm very grateful to that family. Don't get me wrong. Today we're friends. I visit them every time I go over there. We started that, and then after that, I spent about 2 years in Omaha. I got my master's there, and then an offer from Boise State University came. So I moved on over there, and I was living the dream. I was like, my goodness, I'm a Division I coach in an amazing place, making all this money. It wasn't that much more than 24,000, but it was more. And I was so happy that, I could provide, and, I'm getting paid to coach track and field. I couldn't even comprehend that, how exciting that was. And we had a beautiful indoor facility over there in Boise State. Just loving every minute of it. So I spent 3 years there. I started a PhD there in motor behavior, motor control and behavior. I never finished it just because I realized that's not for me. I mean, I got the knowledge I needed to give to the athletes and make me a better coach. So in 2008, August 1st, 2008, that's when I made the move to the University of Georgia as an assistant coach, coaching pole vault and combined events and jumps. And, 2008 to 2015, we've done some great things. And then 2015, beginning of 2015, I became a head coach until 2021.
And let's pause there. So my own little curiosity here, so you go to Omaha and Boise, two beautiful areas. I've been to Omaha once or twice, been to Boise several times. I've never been to Cyprus or Greece. What's the weather like? Is this similar weather pattern to you, or is this a stark difference and change?
Yeah, now remember, Cyprus it's a place that never gets colder than 55.
You said Southern Cal like weather. That's right.
Yes. So, the January move to Omaha, that was a shock. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was not prepared. I did not think about that. But I liked it because, in a way, and this might sound very crazy, but I like 4 seasons. When it's cold, I need it to be cold. When it snows, I need to be real snow, sticking and enjoying the snow. When it's hot, I need to be hot. So we kind of had that in Omaha in a way. Boise was probably the most ideal in 4 seasons. Georgia, it was hot or cold, really hot or really cold, nothing in between. And now here, it's basically the same as Omaha, but the transition, it was a little bit shocking because I did not expect, had I gone in September and kind of get adjusted to it.
Right.
But I went from like 78 to -10 at the time. And I remember this lady at the airport, I came with a backpack, basically a little roller bag. And she's like, son, I hope you have a real winter jacket. Cause I showed up with like a little fleece, and I said, what do you mean? I said, go to the mall and get you a real winter jacket because you will need it here.
So it's interesting, your background, because 99% of the coaches we've had here, and you're this actually, we like round numbers, right? You're actually guest number 180. So 180 plus coaches, because we've had some coaching staffs on here. But most of our past guests, they grew up in America. And so they grew up being a Georgia fan or an Illinois fan, or most of us grew up being Troy State University fans. We realized that first and foremost. You grew up where, there wasn't that. You didn't even have a mascot for your college, for crying out loud. I'm interested in your take, we get a D1 or bust mentality, and I'm talking about that in general statements here, meaning we grow up on Saturdays watching Illinois and Georgia play football. You didn't. You came over to Nebraska-Omaha. Most people outside of Omaha, Nebraska don't know Nebraska-Omaha. Boise State's kind of I don't even call them in the middle. They're a little bit above middle, right? What they've done with football. And again, it's because of football, right? What was your attitude and thoughts about, you came here on a Division II school, and then you go to Boise, and then you go to, one of the football meccas, Georgia. What was it, the pomp and circumstances and things that happen around athletics? What was that like for a kid who grew up with none of that, assumably?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I was more excited that I was close enough to Chicago to go watch the Bulls, because I grew up, as like everybody in the world.
Yes.
Michael Jordan, huge fan. I still to date, and you're gonna laugh at this, but one of the very small reasons why I chose to move to Illinois is that I'll be close enough to go watch the Bulls, even though they're nowhere near where they used to be growing up myself, but it's just like that aura, that mystique to me is still there. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, I still live in the 90s in that matter. But to me, I never really cared about football. I remember when I got to Omaha, the strength coach there, the head strength coach, he played for the Huskers. And Huskers in Nebraska is like, religion. And I couldn't understand it because they weren't very good. No, I was just going, for me, it's like the Ricky Bobby, movie. If you're in first, you're last kind of way. So I'm looking at the rankings, and then we're near. But he said, yeah, in '97, I was on the national championship team when Nebraska won the national football. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's actually good. So I started like creating this this thing about, oh my gosh, football is as big as soccer over there. So let me start watching and start getting really hooked and loving it, loving the sport, start meeting football coaches and talking more about the speed part in football. And we start having like common ground. And I became a big fan, obviously at Boise State, winning those Fiesta Bowls, for us, it was huge. My firstborn was born right after they won the last Fiesta Bowl, I believe in 2008. Wow. In January. So I was like, man, that this is huge. And they go to Georgia, they struggle for a while, and then, but you could see the upward swing and the money involved in that sport. My goodness, I could not believe it, even though it was about the same as soccer in Europe, but but also seeing how much that sport helped my sport, and that, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have all this. So just kind of got really interested in it, and really enjoyed it. But growing up, like you said earlier, there was no mascot, there was no spirit. Whatever the TV provided, and we had like two channels, one will be showing NBA all the time. They didn't show NFL. Right. They show NBA or UCLA. I remember UCLA clearly, and I'm a big fan of Jack and Jonah Kersey, and I am very thankful to be, we're really good friends. So that's how I knew UCLA. And, that's the only school I knew really in the NCAA. That's it, UCLA and nothing else. Obviously coming to the US, I got more interested, and then I learned where it starts and how big the NCAA is and how important it is to beyond, the athletics beyond college.
We're similar. I think we're about the same age. And so I agree. 90s is the best decade, by the way. And I lived in Chicago during that time for a few years. And so I just became I'm not even an NBA guy, and I became a Bulls fan. I literally just saw this yesterday. It was a graphic of the US with the 50 different states, and it had the best selling NBA jersey team wise in each state. Right. And so of course, Illinois was the Bulls. Right. But so was Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, all the way down to Texas, like the whole Midwest. And someone called it, the United States of the Chicago Bulls fans.
Nice.
Like it's quite amazing. Like even down into Texas and stuff, like Bulls is the number one selling jersey. It really was a cultural phenomenon during that point. And I don't want to say it's all about Jordan, but it's all about Jordan.
Exactly.
If Jordan wasn't there, it doesn't happen. Exactly. So did you have any, again, going from Nebraska-Omaha Division II to Boise State Division I, was there, did you even understand, you do now, but did you understand the differences between Division I, Division II, Division III? Did you even know of NAIA and JUCO and things like that?
You're gonna get a laugh at this. I did not. So we were in a minivan. I remember with Tim Hendricks, he was my head coach at Nebraska-Omaha, and I remember we finished second at our conference. It was the North. What was it? The North Central
NEC,
conference,
I think, or something.
Yeah, we were in South Dakota or something like that. So I think South Dakota won, and then we got second. Then we're in the van coming back, and I said, hey, Tim, does that mean we're moving up to Division I now? Are we Division I now? Because, in Europe,
soccer.
Yeah. So you go Division I.
Right.
And he looked at me and I was like, what the hell are you talking about? He was like really country guy, like really straightforward German-like guy. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? No, we're going regionals. But then I educated myself, and, it was better.
That's interesting though. Should all of athletics be that, college athletics be that kind of, because I'm not a soccer fan at all. I grew up in Alabama. We didn't have soccer, at least in my neck of the woods, and literally it was in the woods. But I've read about and kind of now understand a little bit about the Division I, or A League, B League, or whatever it is. And
exactly.
Depending on how you do, you can get kicked out, and other teams can get moved up into that league. That would be interesting for the NCAA, because you know, back in the day, you probably know this now, but you probably certainly didn't know this back then. Back in the day, Division II national champs got to compete at the Division I.
I heard it from a good friend. Yeah.
Yeah, a good friend of
Indianapolis, I
mine.
remember, was huge. Yeah.
Yeah, a good friend of mine and Troy alum, Charles Oliver, Coach O. He was a really great 400-meter runner back when Troy was Division II, and he got to run at the Division I national championship. And I was like, well, that's quite fascinating. And I was like, what happened to that? And he's like, yeah, I think some Division I coaches got tired of D2 kids coming up and beating us. And was like, yeah, that's over with. Cut that out.
I honestly think they should bring that back.
That's
Really. I
interesting, isn't
mean,
it?
I'm a big, obviously, because I started from zero to now,
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of great coaching at that level that people don't understand, whether it's Division II or mid-major D1 or whatever. I think the best coaching, that's where it happens. And I think it's a reward. It should be as I don't want to put him on the spot here or anything like that, but I hope Sam at some point, we all kind of come together, like, you know what, let's just give them a chance, get the national champion or the top three or whatever, just plug them in and
Mhm.
take less. We don't have to take 24 to the outdoor
Right.
meet.
Right.
Let's take 20 and then, take 4 from Division II or Division III or something like that. Now, just,
Yeah.
because I've heard so many stories how exciting it was. A good friend of mine, Steve Gordon, one of my best friends, triple jumper, he lives in Omaha. He was the D2 national champion, and he got to jump against Walter Davis and all these great jumpers. So I think that's great for development, really.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, especially in our sport, right?
Yeah,
Because it's not about Georgia spends billions of dollars on football, but Troy can only spend $1 million.
exactly.
So there's going to be a lot of a gap. It's like, man, coaching is coaching is coaching. If
Exactly.
a kid can coach at Texas A&M Kingsville and the triple jump can go up against the Illinois triple jumper, let's see
Yeah,
it. Who cares what the mascot is? Let's in what
I'm all for it.
division? Yeah, it's interesting.
And it will show really recruits too. And I'm always a big fan of folks that and even recruits not choosing making their choice on buildings and palm
Mm,
trees and whatever that might be that
mhm,
suits you as an athlete, but suits you as a student athlete. Look, like, just go to a place that will really take you. And I keep telling people, what's the degree even mean? It doesn't mean anything. You don't even know the school I went to, and I think I do pretty well
mhm,
professionally, right? So just go somewhere that don't get caught up with all this shine and all that. We
mhm,
all been to great places and all that, and now with social media, unfortunately, that's um and we all try to do a great job on social media so we can attract good people. But
mhm,
at the end of the day, I have a lot of respect for kids that go to places or they know what they want, and that goes for coaches too. I have so much respect for coaches that stick around at a place that doesn't really have
mhm.
all the glory in the world, but they make it work, and they're happy. And that's what, in the end of the day, you just got to be happy where you are, and um, you know, um, go
My
from there.
besides a year that I'm very glad I did as a JUCO coach, my career is Division I. So when I first came here to Gill, most of the meets I went to were Division I. It was just kind of, came from the SEC, so they just make me go to all the Division I meets, right? But as we've become the NCAA equipment sponsor, I've gotten to go to the Division II championships, and I've been, you know me, Petros. I've been to every D1 championship, had
Everyone.
athletes compete. And I watch the D2 meet and I just look around like, man, I think like people who aren't in D2 have no idea what's going on here. This is quite amazing. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, very competitive.
amazing athletes, amazing coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, and I just look at them like, man, what if they just had one shot to compete against the Texases and UCLA? Like, because competition begets competition. I'm like, man, I just think there'd be even more amazingness happen. So, be quite interesting. When
Mhm.
you went to Boise, first of all, when you said your firstborn was born, say that 3 times fast. You said that
Mhm.
Fiesta Bowl. Was that the Boise State, Oklahoma football
Yes.
game? Oh my God. Greatest. If you haven't seen that game, oh my God, you got to go find it on ESPN Classics. The best game ever. Wins it on a Statue of Liberty play. And then the kid proposes to his girlfriend right there on the field. I still remember exactly where I was when I saw that game. Greatest game in the entire world. Uh, how was Boise State in regards to, you had a great indoor facility there. Rest in peace, that indoor facility, it's gone. You had nationals there. How was that time, and what led to leaving there and going to Georgia?
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, going to Boise State, I was so excited that I would be a Division I coach and that indoor facility. Mike Maynard was the head coach there. He was a very energetic guy, very technical throws coach that really liked the idea. I mean, Mike, I'm not gonna lie to you, Mike was the guy that first he was talking about national championships at Boise State. And to me, made me think like, man, this guy really wants to win. And for me, he had very high standards. Like I remember, being in our team meetings and and we're like, hey, I can't give a full scholarship to decathlon unless he's 70, 100 points. And I'm like, hell yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Now, whether you can get a 7,800 point decathlete, which later on they did with Kurt Felix and all that, winning the decathlon national title there. But to me, when I see a place like that, like, why not us? Why not this place? I mean, yeah, it is a mid-major. It might not have the big budgets, the big salaries and all that, but we're talking about coaching here. So that's when really got me to be like, okay, you bring in a good or decent athlete, you develop them, you coach them. It doesn't matter how good they are. As long as they have talent, you're going to bring it up. And I remember at Boise State in 2007, we were ranked 4th in the country in those rankings. You know how USTFCCA, they post every week. I believe it was sometime in February. We were ranked 4th, had Ryan Grinnell there, later on, my assistant coach. Ryan was ranked top 3 in both the long jump, triple jump, and high jump. We had a couple of great long jump, triple jumpers. So to me, that started being really intriguing. It's like, you know what? Winning a national championship as a team, it would be so cool, because you get deep into this team thing that is so important, and you do everything for the team, but without really thinking too much about the thing, because that's the beauty of track and field, that if you take care of yourself, you take care of the team, but you also think about the team. So Mike Maynard really got that little, thought in my head that having high standards really takes you far, and clearly we've done well. I mean, we've had a couple of teams that finished top 15 of the country at Boise State, which I feel that was amazing for that place. But then towards the end, my 3rd year, as we all do, you want to evolve, you want to support your family a little bit more, and at the time that place was a little bit limited on that, but I really missed that facility, that indoor facility. My gosh, I mean, I've never been to a better, and I mean this, I've been to some amazing indoor facilities. To me, that was the best indoor facility in the country, personally. Bias or not, that was just amazing places to jump fast, straight away, the curves, everything, like from the Mondo surface to the equipment, everything was just amazing. The location had room in the back to have your own weight room. So that it was still there after I left, because clearly, they hosted the NCAA indoors there in 2012. It was nice for me to go back. And after that, I just wanted to go a little more competitive league. Clearly the SEC, it was booming at the time. Now, I was like, you know what, maybe that will get me a little bit closer to becoming a head coach eventually, because I want to lead a team to something special, do something that was not done before. And Georgia seemed to be a good fit for that, because I knew it's a place that can be great. And as you know, I mean, at the time, Georgia was nothing great, but they had won, I believe in 2006 or 7, they had won the SEC in the women's side indoors, but nowhere nationally. Like I was never a big fan of conferences. Like I never cared what the team does conference wise, because you're not competing against everybody. And when you compete against everybody, things kind of tend to spread out. And that's where you really show your coaching, in my opinion. Again, nothing against conference championships and all that. But to me, it made me feel like, okay, if I'm there, I might be able to bring them a little more talented kid. I don't have to it doesn't have to be, all the Europeans or foreign kids to attract a semi-decent, like Ryan Grinnell, for example. Ryan was a 22.9 long jumper coming out of high school and like 48 feet in the triple jump. And then, later on, he became 26.6 and 57, but I felt, maybe you have access to some better athletes and all that. And I was wrong, because coaching is coaching, like you said. You're just gonna be exposed to maybe more, like a bigger concentration of talent, but you still got to pick the best one. And now you're competing with, Florida's, Texas A&M. I mean, you got all these powerhouses, these amazing coaches and staffs and all that. And it made it more competitive, but it makes you better, because you start to reinventing yourself in different ways. So it was a good experience. So that's why I really felt that making that move, it was needed at the time. Now, I could have stayed at Boise State and eventually become a head coach, because Mike moved on to UCLA. I don't know. I would not be opposed to that. If Mike was already on his way to UCLA, but it happened 2 years after I left, 2 years. But I don't regret the fact that I made that move, just because it was best for my family at the time. I had a young newborn. We need a little more financial support, and Georgia offered that, and it wasn't a lot more. Don't get me wrong there, but it was just that environment of okay, you got more options, you got more access, yada yada yada. You got the Atlanta area, so it was an easy move. And at the time, we didn't own a house, it was very easy to move at the time, and we made that move as a family. So
I love that you mentioned about when you went to Georgia and you're like, oh, well, now I'm going up against Florida and Texas. When I went from Ball State to Mississippi State, I thought I had made it. I'm like, oh man, now anytime I call a recruit, they're going to know Mississippi State. Like, I have to introduce Ball State and where they are and who we are and all this stuff. And I remember the first kid I recruited was LZ Coleman. He set the national record high school for the indoor 400 up in Newburgh in New York. And so I'm like, hey, LZ, like, so who are you interested in? He's like, well, yeah, I'm going to go visit, Florida, Baylor, USC, and I can't remember, maybe it was Texas. And I was like, oh crap, wait a minute. I got to recruit against Mouse. I got to recruit against, Texas. Oh my, this didn't get easier. This got harder.
Oh, it's harder.
The guys that I call my mentor, Mouse, how do I beat him? I did, by the way. He came to Mississippi State anyway. But I do want to explore something you said there, Petros. I think this is super interesting. You said Mike Maynard put in your head that high standards are a good thing. And your quote that you said was, yeah, why not us? Why because just, and I hate that word just, that's going to pull into this, that we're just Boise State, so we can't do it. That's for the Georgias and the Texases and Floridas and things like that, right? How do you, that word just, I'm 24/7, I'm on Twitter, right? And someone will say, well, I'm just a throws coach, or I'm just a high school coach, or I'm just a insert whatever. And I'll push back a little bit, like, hey, get that word just out of your vocabulary. You are a throws coach. That's important. You are a high school coach. That is highly important. You are a coach at Nebraska-Omaha. That's important. That's a big deal for the people that you positively impact there. It's not just, if you think you're lowering yourself, well, what does that say about the people that you serve on your team, right? So how did you balance this? Hey, we're Boise State. There's no reason why we can't win a trophy at nationals or even win the national title, versus ego. And I don't mean ego, ego's not a bad thing. Bad ego is a bad thing, because there's also that side, because it's easy to flip over and go, well, why can't I get good kids here? I'm a great coach. Why can't I be at nationals? Why can't I get invited to this cross country meet with my team? There's this play of like, hey, we high esteem, but also humility. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, it's confidence, really. I mean, you have to be genuinely confident without any second thoughts. And Mike had that, and that's what I really liked about him, because now, if you pair that with good technical coaching and the ability to sell what you have, it makes you an amazing coach, just like, Mouse or Pat Henry or any of these ultra accomplished coaches out there. Um, you got to have that, but at the same time, in their personal lives, they're humble, they're giving, you got to get to know them. Like, I like everybody else, when you start winning, you all of a sudden get criticized a lot.
Sure.
It's a common thing. Then you become, oh, he's that, he's this. People don't know. If you don't know that person, you can make a lot of assumptions. But if you get to know that person, that in your eyes you see a big ego or whatever, or oh, that guy's a bad person or whatever, but you don't know until you meet them and you see their surroundings, how giving they are, how like welcoming they are, how they treat their athletes in terms of pushing them, getting them where they want to be. Because not everybody wants to be an Olympian. I mean, they might say it, but like Nick Saban said, everybody talks about becoming national champions, but nobody talks about what you need to do to prepare to be a national champion.
Right.
And I think that's what makes Miles great. That's what makes all this coaches at any level really great, because they have that ability to break that down. And that's the confidence package that comes with it, that sometimes they might get misunderstood, but if you go and see their personal lives, usually these folks with this ultra confident presence to lead, because you need that to lead. If you're not confident, nobody's going to follow you. And it has to be genuine. It has to be genuine. But at the same time, being confident, that doesn't mean you're not going to be giving. You're not going to be rewarding. You're not going to be mentoring. You're not going to be nurturing. All those things come. And you can't please everybody. They say, if you want to make everybody happy, go sell ice cream, but in our profession, in any profession,
that's not true. Lactose intolerant people still aren't happy with you.
There you go. Well, you sell what you call it,
like sherbet or something.
Sorbet, yeah.
Sorbet. Every time someone posts that, if you want to be happy, go sell ice cream. I'm like, lactose intolerance people are pissed because they don't like it. Hey, that's great. That's interesting. I'm reminded of a great quote from another amazing track coach, Division II Hall of Famer George Williams, and his famous saying is, "If you're not in the huddle, you don't know the play." So it's easy from the outside to go, yeah, he's, Mouse. You can't talk to Mouse at a meet. And it's like, first of all, you don't know what's going on. And second of all, I'll just tell you from personal note, he's an awesome guy. Actually, he wins a lot of trophies, but you know what? He's still a man, just a regular old person who is a bowler. I mean, he's just a regular dude. Same with you, Petros. From the outside, some people from working, not with you, working at a meet with that you're at, and be like, oh, Petros, he just never talks to anybody, blah, blah. And it's like, well, do you know what he's doing at a meet? He's working. Like he's zoned in. I've seen you when you're at meets, you're zoned in on from the warm up to the cool down. So until you know what a person's going through, it's easy to cast judgment, but it's always wrong to cast judgments. It really is.
Gotta get to know the person.
Yeah. There's a difference between, I think, Coach Kyprianou, because that's your job, and then Petros, the person. That those are two different things. I'm a little different at work than I'm at the house. I'm working here, but I'm at the house, I'm much more laid back. I'm pretty laid back at work too, though. Okay, so you go to Georgia. What I'm interested in here is, so when you came to Georgia was okay. They'd had some studs, one or two studs, 3, 4, but they weren't winning national titles. They certainly weren't in discussions for national titles, SEC titles. How did you, with the staff that you were there with, so you were an assistant coach, how did you help build that culture up and then eventually take over as leadership and then really kind of pour in? Because now it's all coming from you as far as the culture. How'd you pour gas on that culture at that point?
Yeah. So when I got there in 2008, 2009, in 2009, I believe we finished 11th in the country.
Okay.
And it was due to basically a javelin throw winning and a 400 hurdle getting third. And that was it. And everybody's celebrating and talking how great we are and all that. And I'm looking at, Don Babbitt at the time, we were sitting there talking, and it's like, Petros, this is our national championship. And I'm like, that's as smart to say and as challenging to think. So I never forgot that. Don is a very smart guy. So when he says something like that to me, it was like, man, he's 100% right. So what do we need to do? Why don't we have more of these javelin throwers or more of that 400 hurdler? And as the years went by, it was bad. I mean, we couldn't get top 20. I didn't really get things going. As an assistant, you got to prove yourself. Hey, I can go recruit this girl from Greece or from Sweden that come in, start winning the SEC triple jump title, but not good enough to like get top 3 at the NCAA. So good, but not good enough. So 2012, that's when really started kicking in. 11, 12. That's when, I got Morgan Lalo, the pole vaulter, that she was second in the country. And then, Corey Holman, the decathlon. And then, Garrett Scanley, Michael Weaver, they all start coming. And that's when, Georgia would start getting top 10s with 2 jumpers or a decathlete and a high jumper. And I'm like, man, that's all it takes. But again, you're not the director, you're not the head coach. So you can do what you can do that is asked from you to take care of your group.
Right.
You have the force, and thankfully, Wayne Norton at the time, my boss at the time, he saw that, hey, this group is winning, is doing something. So I'm going to put a little more money there. And that's a very simple way to, help the area. But, there's other issues where you get to, as a head coach, you have to make sure that the team overall, you have a goal. We had a great coaching staff, all of us really. You had Don Babbitt, you had John Stewart, you had, great coaches, great leadership. But I think it's when Greg McGarity, the athletic director that hired me later on as a head coach, he came in from Florida. He was the number 2 at Florida. Greg McGarity came in 2010. That he really changed the culture because it was not okay to be outside the top 20. It was not okay to be bottom half in the SEC. So he started applying that good pressure I always call. And as you know, pressure is a privilege. If you're being pressured, that means you're onto something good. And it was not okay for him to be outside the top 25. And I remember in 2014, we got third. We got our first trophy. It was my first trophy as an assistant coach. I remember Kendall Williams won the pentathlon. I got another pentathlete, finished 4th. Then we won the high jump. We won the long jump. Second in the long jump. We had a girl get 4th in the mile. And that was it. And we got third. And I'm like, guys, that quality, that's what screams. And you got to be good at the events that nobody else is good at and be really good at those events. And, but nobody really would, I guess, look at it. But that was like, it was all Greg McGarity, I think, because I'm one of these guys that I let a lot of things fly in front of me. But when I listen to a great leader, I like to take few words, because I remember he said, besides the is not okay. And he will not be the guy that he would get on the podium and pound his fist on the podium and say, you got to win. You got to this. We need to win. We should be winning. He had a very special way of really like twisting certain things without making you hurt. You know what I mean? Like he would make a comment, you see it, you own it. For example, you see a trash on the track and you walk by, you see it, you own it, you pick it up and you throw it in the trash can. Little things like that, it start building up in my head that this guy actually, he's a great leader. He was not the aggressive power figure, like a guy that looks like an action hero that stands on the podium and he gives these speeches that, I'm a different cat like he was. So I like that kind of leadership where it's not okay to be average. It's not okay to be bad. You gotta be better, but you don't have to like pound in and rub it in people's faces every day. There's a lot of different ways in leading, and that's how I like it personally. And I think one of the biggest mentors I had is Greg in learning that from him, even as an assistant. So for 10 years straight that I was around him, I was like, man, this guy is he's a treasure. Um, a little bit old school, but understanding the modern era. And obviously coming from Florida and winning all this, he was the guy that hired the coach that won the football national championship and all that. So, that guy's bringing credibility. So everything he said to me, it was really ingrained in my mind. And even as an assistant, you can do a lot, because I keep telling even now, all my assistants, ever since I've been a head coach, that you guys are not assistants. I don't like that term. You're head coaches of your event area. You're a coach. Assistant coach is somebody that assists with raking the pit or pulling a tape measure. And as a coach is actually you're coaching, you're recruiting and developing kids. So you are responsible for your team. You have your own team that is a part of the bigger team. It's like any CEO running a program, an organization, every department. I mean, that department head, it's a head. It's not an assistant. So to me, once you give that to your coaches, not only you empower them, but you give them the chance to create, and you hire that person. So if you hire that person and you don't trust them, who are you? And I'm very proud of a lot of the people that I hired, and either they went on to becoming head coaches or moved on to bigger programs and all that. But the biggest thing is what Greg McGarity said that first day. He took over, and he had like a lacrosse ball and a squishy, the thing that you play cornhole, that little bag. So he said, the lacrosse ball is your job, and the sandbag is your life and your career and your family. So he dropped them, and the job bounced up. He said, if you're not good enough and you get fired or you let go or whatever, you can bounce back. There are always a job. But so basically, long story short, it's trying to like give us the balance that you can be great and you can have a good life, with your family. So, and the see and own it and all that. Like, I think to me, that's what really molded me as a leader in the modern era, really.
That's an amazing part of leadership for an athletic director of an SEC program, because it's from the outside you hear, and I've experienced it as an assistant coach. It's hard driving. It's no one will say it comes before family, but there's a lot of hints and culture that demand that. So for him to stand up there and say, hey, here's two things.
He lived it that way. He was one of the lowest paid ADs. He's retired now. He lives in Ponte Vedra, where I used to live last year. And, but he lived it like that. He never went for the big money. He never went for the flash. He was driving a RAV4 Toyota. And I'm driving this fancy car, recruiting, how it is. And I'm like, Greg, you have a free car. It's not like you
right.
Like the dealership is giving it, like, you're sponsored by this big. He's like, Petros, why? Plus, I said, is it because you're Scottish origin and you're stingy? You don't want to pay gas? I was pulling his leg. He said, no, you don't get it, do you? He said, it's not about the flash. It's not about, and this is a guy that he's the guy that is responsible for Georgia's national championship.
Right.
He left the year before they won. So he built all that. So that goes back to what you said earlier about how do you balance the humility with the big, powerful, confident leader, So to me, that's probably the best example.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So, it's different being a head coach as an assistant coach, and that now, but you didn't know that as an assistant coach, as you were transforming through Georgia. Did you want to be a head coach? And then the part two of that is, of course, once you got the head coaching job, were you ready for it?
Actually, I wasn't looking to be a head coach. And you're going to laugh at this, but I was interviewing for a job at USC with the current director of Georgia.
Yeah, Carol. Yeah.
Carol. So Carol and I were talking about, and I was actually considering it because I was like, hey, that's it's like going back home, same weather, Southern California, you know, I was loving every minute of it. And while I was gone, you know, the position open at Georgia, like I was completely unaware of what's going on. So I go back and in 3 days, I was offered the head coaching job at Georgia. I was like, but then Greg asked me, said, "Are you ready for it? Do you want this? Like, do you want this to be?" Because you know, I was very lucky and fortunate to had won a few, I think three assistant national coach of the year. So Greg is a guy, McGarry, the AD at the time, like he pays attention to everything, everything. Like he knows all the assistant coaches in the country. Like he's one of these ADs that knows every sports staffs. Yes, he's very good at that. So I was like, Greg, I think I mean, I've been here for 7 years. I mean, I want to make a move, and you know, I want to go to a place that, you know, I really wasn't crazy about being a head coach, but I wouldn't say no if you're offered a head coaching job, but I wasn't really itching for it, you know. And I come back and I was offered the job and I accepted it, and you know, next thing led to another. And
again, that's another kind of show of where your ego and humility is, because, you know, a lot of people, they have no problem telling me, even right here on the podcast, they know they're being recorded and thousands of people are going to listen to this. They have no problem telling me, yeah, I wanted to be a head coach. They can't really explain it terribly well. Most of them say they want to be the head coach because they wanted to lead. And I believe that 100%. Some people want to be the head coach because they want to be the boss. And they don't remember that the other side of it comes of responsibility. And I'm missing a word here, but you know, you're the buck stops with you. You know, it's good or bad, and sometimes it's bad, right? You on the other hand, you were like, you know, I wouldn't turn it down, but I just want to coach well and have a program that's going that direction.
It's the leading part that I like a lot. Clearly, you know, you lead your own group. Like I said earlier, you're the head coach of your own group. But you know, I knew it was going to come, but I was about 38 at the time. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to be a head coach before I turned 40. It was just like a silent goal I had in my head. But at the same time, you know, I think I can do a lot more, as, you know, I wanted to be the best jumps and combined events coach in the country. And I've done it in a way at the time. And I was like, yeah, I know it's going to come sooner and later. So I wasn't really pressuring it. Even after I left Georgia, I mean, I considered going back as an assistant just to enjoy coaching and just do my thing. And, you know, I talked to actually people about being an assistant and going back to that. But to me, just like Mouse is, and Pat Henry and Carol and all the great accomplished national championship level coaches, these are coaching head coaches, like they're actively coach.
Right.
So to me, I would never become the director without coaching. I would never do that. Might as well be an administrator. Why are you just, I mean, what is your purpose? You got to lead by example. That's just my very strong opinion about leading a team. You got to be an active coach so you can compete with your coaches. You want them to compete. You want them to be like, okay, bring me the best athlete. I'll give you the money and let's go to work and compete and see who's going to accomplish the best. And I'll reward you if you do it. So to me, that's why I do that, to be the director or the head coach. But I would never give up the actual coaching, those events that I enjoy coach.
There's only 14 people in this world who get to call themselves a head SEC coach. Soon to be 16, Texas and Oklahoma. What was one of the biggest challenges? So you go from the office down here to the office in the corner. Head coach gets in front of the coach. No more assistant. Everybody's looking to you now. Hey, what do you want to do with scholarship allotment? Hey, what do you want to do with scheduling? Hey, you want to do with budgeting, etc. What was one of the biggest challenges that maybe you just didn't see coming that you had to deal with?
Yeah, it's the fact that you know, you hold people accountable in different way. Where before,
that was the word.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, we've had a coach, I'm not gonna name names or anything like that, that, you know, they come in while I was an assistant, they come in and say, hey, you know, this female sprinter, or I don't remember, it was sprinter or thrower or something like that. Like they're they're looking at us. We're their number one choice behind this and this school. And then I'm like, how are we number one if we're behind? So, but then when you say it as an assistant, you're thrown out the window. But if you say it as a head coach, like you hold somebody accountable, like, hey, before you say that, think twice or have like a more concrete. So, and I'm not, what you call like a hard ass or whatever, but I am going to be very transparent and honest. It's like Althea will tell you, one of my all-time favorite coaches. And she could take it as like, hey, this and this recruit are no good. Like, if you want to be great, you can't fight for this. Like, you got to do this. And the next thing you know, I mean, she's the one that brought Matthew Bowling in. If it wasn't for Althea Thomas, Matthew Bowling would not be at Georgia. I don't care what people think, or she's the one. Even myself, when she brought his name to me, I was like, are you sure? 46.9, I think was he ran the 400. It wasn't anything great, but
right.
No, he's like, Petros, this kid is going to be good. And next thing you know, he's the most marketable kid in the NCAA. It's all AT. It wasn't Petros, it wasn't George, it was all AT. So she took the challenge and took it to the next level. And she leads. She's a leader, and not just her, but a lot of the assistants actually worked out, because there's a lot of assistants and athletes that didn't work out well for me, or I didn't work out for them either, because if you don't have the same mindset, it's just not going to work. That doesn't mean they're bad. It's just a different way. So that's, I think, the head that comes before the coach all boils down to, can you hold people accountable and get them to believe in what you have to offer? Because in the end of the day, you're going to get rings if you win. You're going to get the bonuses. You're going to get all that. And the ones that really took that challenge, they were rewarded.
That's an interesting example you gave there about Bowling and Althea. And by the way, Althea is a Gill Connections alum. Go search the app that you're using right now and go listen to her podcast. She's amazing. But I thought there were several kind of parts to parse out there. One is that, Matthew, everybody knows Matthew now, of course, and deservedly so. You're right. For SEC, he was kind of, okay, at that point, right? But she had the conviction to stay with it. I thought that was interesting how you pointed that out. But then also, so you're the head coach, you easily can squash it. You could have easily said, look, AT, move on, go find the 45-point kids. That's what let's get rid of this kid from Texas. This is not it. But instead, you trusted her. You're like, okay, you're proving that you're putting the facts out there. You have conviction. Okay, I'll trust you. And of course it worked out. And sometimes, that doesn't mean it's going to work out. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but that you had the ability to say, okay, my assistant is putting in the work. I trust her. I've got to show her that I trust her. Okay, let's go get them. And then you did. And of course, history writes itself at that point.
Yeah. And she has proven herself with Lena Irby. She got Lena Irby to run 49.8 today. That's her best. She's solidified and developed. Elijah Godwin. All these kids you see on Georgia roster right now on the track. That's all AT recruiting and developing. And to me, I take a lot of pride in that, in developing, and Matthew Bowling exploded, but then he still came in and won the 200 title. It's not just signing him, but developing him too. To me, that's an elite coach. That's a very high level coach that gets it. She doesn't, or she, whatever, don't bother with anything but that. That's what I'm zoned in. I don't care what people think or say. This is all I'm going to do. And instead of some other coaches I've had that they get caught up with, they want to be liked. They just want to be liked, and they shake hands and kiss babies, and that's all they care about. And that's okay. If that's their prerogative, that's fine. But I just like the hardworking folks that, she's doing the same thing as a head coach now. She never changed. That's what I really like about coaches like AT, that they never stop. But they know how to shut down and be a person, because she is good at that too. And to me, I learned from her in that regard, because to me, one of the things that resulted into taking the year off, leaving Georgia on my own, is because I was like borderline burned out from not taking break and not understanding there's more in life than recruiting and coaching elite athletes. So you learn from your assistants too, but you got to have the right ones. And we all make mistakes. But we're also gonna have the good ones that we'll learn from, and maybe down the road you might end up working for them. You never know,
Before we transition to the post Georgia, did you, when you became head coach and as you're learning the new road to navigate and you're building that road as the head coach, were there any mentors that you leaned on, anybody that you called that was just like, hey man, how do you do this? I'm struggling with X. You seem to kill it with that. What am I missing? Was there any mentors that you were kind of able to lean on?
In the NCAA, not really,
Right.
just because I wanted to do things differently, and that's what all they were. When they see the byproduct of our 6-year head coaching stunt there, I've had 3 different folks that I talked to. One being my father-in-law and boss at the time, soccer coach. He's a guy that every practice he would sit down and write about 6-7 pages of notes about each athlete or each player and how they were moving, their body language, their behavior, everything. So, but that over the years, I mean, you have this invaluable database where you can go back and, see how you handle things, or and very similar to leading any sport, really. It doesn't have to be necessarily soccer. Then the other guy was Vasily Krumov, arguably the best coach I've ever had. He coached me personally, and he took me as a very average athlete. And really, that's who I credit all my good techniques. Russian Bulgarian coach, where, I got influenced a lot by his coaching style in the weight room, especially, but then how efficient he was in teaching the technique without doing too much. So him, and then obviously, the people you have around you that you learn without even asking. Like you watch, for example, I mean, I observe a lot. Clearly, Miles is a guy that I've watched how he's done things, and he evolved in many ways. I mean, I even took as simple as how do you travel? A lot of head coaches force their team to dress up head to toe. You got to look professional. You got to do this, and I'm seeing Miles in Florida with their Jordans and their warm up suit, and I'm like, yeah, that's as simple as that. Why will you have to travel all tightened up and uncomfortable? Just let them be comfortable, but look nice at the same time. So little things like that to me go a long ways when I see and observe. Even conversations with coaches all over the world, you learn so many things. But those 2 folks really helped me. And the third one really is Greg McGarity. The third, even to date, I ask him, I call him, and even post Georgia, as mad as he was that I left, he was really mad at me. He would not talk to me for a month. But he actually when coaches would call him for reference, like he would talk bad to them about me, meaning he's crazy. Like he got up and left. He had it all there, and he got up and left. But he was so honest that this ADs really appreciate that. Hey, Petros is not your normal. He's not going to leave for another job. He's going to leave because he needs the break, or something led to that, but so those 3 guys, completely different. You have one,
right.
My father-in-law, learning the leadership style and taking notes. Vasily Krumov really helped me in solidifying my training style, and Greg McGarity, really a combination of both, but really the NCAA mentorship and how to become great, and in a very different way, not the yelling and an aggressive part of you have to win. Why do you have to win? That's what I learned from Greg.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think mentorship is extremely important. I've seen it in my coaching career. I saw it, before, in between coaching and Gill, as a professional poker player, I had mentors in professional poker playing. And then
Wow.
here, as in the corporate world, I have mentors, and I've seen coaches, again, I'm so blessed. I am the guy that shakes hands and kiss babies. You got to earn to do that. You can't be the coach and do that. You got to earn the right to do that in my kind of job. But I talk to coaches, every day, all day, 24/7. And I see the role and power of a mentor. And so, I'm always encouraging assistant coaches, hey, find the head coach. If you want to become a head coach, find a head coach to become a mentor. And that's not just, go pick one and make them a new mentor. It's got to be the right fit and feel and comfort.
Background,
But
yeah.
I wonder, and that's why I asked you that question. I worry about coaches that become a head coach in the SEC for the first time, and I shouldn't say SEC, Power Five, because there's so much competitiveness amongst the Power Five. We're all trying to eat from the same small pie. There's only one national championship trophy
Exactly.
given out at championships, right? So I was wondering, I was like, man, Petros becomes the head coach of Georgia. Can you really call Mouse and be like, hey, Mouse, so help me out? And Mouse, and Mouse is such a great guy. He probably would, but there's just that little bit of like, Petros, I can't give you the all of it. You're gonna come beat me and take my job.
Yeah.
I just felt like that'd be kind of hard. And so I appreciate you, laying out those different kind of mentors and the different roles that each one of those mentors played, not just this general
Yeah.
mentor, like, hey, this one was specific here, this one was specific here. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you used the B word, burnout. And it's really interesting. I'm reading and studying right now something called the Six Working Geniuses, and it talks about the 6 parts of work. And work is our work, our profession, our work at home as husbands and wives, planning vacations and families and things like that. And it talks about a little bit like the introvert extrovert type of thing. Introverts, being out in the USTFCC convention takes energy from them. But for extroverts, it gives us energy. It's a little bit like that. It's kind of like, what skills has God given you that give you energy? And so, boy, make you do more of that. And then there's things that just, boy, you're just not good at. You're just not wired for it.
Mhm.
And the guy Patrick Lencioni is the author of this book and this assessment. He's amazing. He did the ideal team player, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. He's just an amazing productivity and work type of author and thinker. But he talked about the word burnout, and he's like, we use the word burnout, and we kind of give the analogy a lot of times of a car running out of gas, right? And with burnout, we say, oh, you need to take time off. When you run out of gas in a car, pulling it to the side of the road doesn't make it go. You have to give it fuel. And that actually burnout is probably more of, you are doing too many things, spending too much time in those activities that take energy from you, instead of actually giving you more work. Like, you get more done if you're doing it in your strengths and your competencies. So real quick shout out. I would encourage you to
Oh
Google
yeah.
6 Working Geniuses and go look at that. We're working on that right now internally. But you use the word burnout. So talk to us about Georgia and the transition, and where'd you go, what'd you do, and why did you do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something that even today people ask me, why did you leave? I mean, you guys were killing it. Like, you won in top 3 consistently. And I think you said it while you're giving me the abstract of the book and its point. When you spend your energy or part of your energy in dealing, or not dealing, but trying to do things that suck your energy, it will hurt where you're good at. And what I was doing that it really crushed me and really absorbed my energy is trying to improve the facilities.
Mm.
And that's the elephant in the room. That's what everybody could not like comprehend. Oh, Petros left. He got fired. He did this. He did that. I'm like, why don't you guys understand that this is not all about money? I was offered a big contract. It's public. You can go see it. You can talk to the AD. Really good friend of mine, Josh Brooks. Great guy, amazing leader. Um, the thing is, when you're trying to, and I really wanted an indoor facility. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really fought for that. Really tried. The ADs, everybody wanted that, but then it's beyond control sometimes when a track coach is demanding or over years trying to like with different ways. I even brought folks that were willing to give millions, and you're still going nowhere. It's really frustrating. Um, and Georgia has given me the chance to be who I am today. I mean, there's no question about it. I'll always be grateful to them. My kids walk for the first place. I mean, it's so much more than just a paycheck. And the paycheck was I was very well compensated there. That's a place that really took care of me and my family and my staff and everybody, and best in the country, hands down. I just couldn't get, and again, maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe that was not my strong suit to find a way to get that indoor facility built. And it got into a point that was so frustrating. So like, it was just a dead end, just completely dead end. And I just couldn't, there was not a wall that Petros could just go through the wall, like other days or other times, get things he wanted or whatever. It just wasn't going anywhere. And for me, it was important. For other coaches, I'm not going to name names or anything like that. The salary is most important. Hey, including some of my closest circle, relatives, collect a paycheck and shut up. Like, you're making all this money. What are you doing? Like, and talking to my mentors about it, because that was a 2-year, it wasn't a quick reaction. It was 2020 that I started thinking about this, and had discussions with my family and mentors and all that. Like, it didn't happen overnight. But when I came to that decision, I handed my resignation basically in February of 2021. Nobody knew. We still finished third in the country, both men and women. So I was doing my job. My assistants doing great job and everything. I just couldn't find a way to make peace with it. Maybe it's my fault 100%. Maybe I'm just one of these stubborn guys. And maybe, that got me so frustrated where it was a big mistake. Time will tell, but at that time, over 2 years of me like working with it, trying to make peace with it, I just couldn't make peace with it. It's like, you want to sign this big time recruit, and you're trying and you're trying and you're trying. And sometimes you get them, but when you don't, you can't make peace with them. Well, why would they go be trained by me? Like, I'm the best. Maybe you're not best enough for them. So right. I just couldn't make peace with that. And that's why it made me, take that step. And now, I never said I'm retiring from the NCAA. I said, I'm going to take a year off. We went to Florida, spent a year there, in our beach home, a little bitty house about a mile from the water. I was going back, thinking about it now, it was probably the best thing I've ever done. Just the fact that now I didn't stop coaching. I'm still coaching some professionals there, some good ones with, we end up getting some world medals, Kendall Williams and Garrett doing what he did. But it was so much better knowing that I don't have to go fight for facilities. I don't have to. And again, it's not Petros versus Georgia. No, it's Petros versus Petros, or Petros versus Coach Kyprianou. It's like one of those things that it was an internal fight where I want to provide for my kids, for my team. Like, I didn't want the facility for me to go there and have coffee outside of the elements, because it does get cold there. Sure. It does. Yeah. And it was for me to have more viable sessions and have my own peace and all that. And that's what I wanted. So, but I always wanted to come back to the NCAA, because that's what my talent is. I think that's where my, and I interviewed for a big prominent job that I didn't get. And the AD at that school, when I took the job at Illinois, I finished second at that job. And the AD called me and he said, I'm glad you're back. And that's a competitor.
Wow.
AD. He said, this is your call. Like, you should stay in this, because you make everybody better. You make yourself better. So for me, that was very encouraging.
Yeah.
To hear that from him. And when Illinois and I started talking, I was like, they have everything I need. It's not about money. This everything is not about money, but I have plenty. I have enough to support my family, and it doesn't have to be this extravagant, lifestyle or whatever, which is fine for some people, but for me, it just doesn't. I just need to have what I need to have, you know. I'm gonna have a nice car, I'm gonna have a decent house, but I'm not gonna, you know, take it to the next level just to prove a point, you know.
And an amazing garage. That's part of
Yes,
you've got to
that's
have that. Yeah.
and a lot of that is thankful to great relationships I've had, and
Right.
folks that like yourself, you know, help me out, and your company and all that. But it's important to me to have practicality and functionality, not flash.
Right.
There's a big difference. So Illinois really had exactly what I needed, and that's why I came back.
Well, I want to give a quick shout out because you mentioned you were down in Jacksonville, which, I mean, come on, that's a pretty good place to go take a year sabbatical, if you will. But you were working
That's
during your
exactly right.
sabbatical, yeah. But I got to give a shout out. You were at Episcopal High School there as well, which, you know, I was, that was one of the first 10 or so big facilities that I ever did was their program down there. And I remember that weight room, that shed, you know, big shed, but you know, yeah. I just loved the AD and the track coach at the time. It's a great place. So shout out to Episcopal High School who, you know, had you there, and you know, they got a lot of benefit from you being there as well. Not many high schools had a guy of your caliber helping out with strength conditioning for all their sports.
Eagles are 6-1, baby.
Is that right? Oh man,
yeah.
that's awesome. So why Illinois? And what I mean by that is, you know, hey, you know, full disclosure for anybody who doesn't know, Gill Athletics, you know, so we're named after Harry Gill, who was the head coach at University of Illinois way back in the day. We've been around since 1918. So, you know, our roots are right here in Champaign, Illinois. I mean, gosh, 90% of our people graduated from Illinois, and my wife is an Illinois grad. I mean, we are deeply entrenched with the university and with the city. So when I say why Illinois, I mean that in the sense of you have options. You always have. You specifically always have options. I think you nailed it when you talked about that AD calling you to congratulate you, because that person did not have to do that. You were a byproduct at that point to them. They had their person. Who needs to call Petra? Who needs to call the person they disappointed and said no to and say, hey, congratulations, man. This is where you belong. So shout out to that person. But why Illinois? What attracted you to come here? You're going to get all 4 seasons.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, very well aware of that. Clearly, Illinois is just like Georgia. It reminds me a lot of Georgia when I first got there in 2008. You know, things were a little bit behind. Teams were not really taking over the world per se, but you had administration, some leadership that, you know, that with the proper coaching, proper recruiting, and it is a Power 5. It is a big school. It's still Big Ten. I mean, Big Ten right now, financially, has nothing to shy away from the SEC. Really, if the SEC is really this big thing we think it is, for me, those things don't mean anything. Like absolutely nothing. I'll be the exact same coach. I mean, I looked at schools, mid-majors. I interviewed at places. I have absolutely no problem if they had what I wanted and the salary was not it. I would have taken that, no problem. Because my biggest thing, and call it a, pet peeve for some, or a strong suit for others, I want to make history. I want to win when you're not supposed to win. You know, we made Georgia where you're supposed to win. But Georgia at the time was not supposed to win. They were not supposed to be like, what is Georgia doing around, the big powerhouses that win every year? Why are you up there? You shouldn't be there. You don't belong. But now Georgia is supposed, you are Georgia. You're supposed to win. And it's not because of me. It's because the place was always like that. We just needed to, set it on fire a little bit, and they're gonna win a lot more. And they're gonna win before and after Petros. But I wanted to be there when hopefully Illinois does the same thing. And now what I like more about Illinois coming in, as opposed to coming into different places that I worked, is the fact that they have a nice indoor facility. They have a very nice outdoor facility. I mean, people, I have no clue. And I'm not going to lie to you, until I visited, how great this place is. One of the biggest campuses, 55,000+ students. The support, oh my goodness. Like, I never even met a track and field booster until I came to Illinois. And I was at Georgia for 13 years. Like nobody will come out and say, I'll give a 7-figure donation to build a track.
Right.
Never. I was not like, I mean, and I met these folks and they're so passionate, going back to even Harry Gill, the first ever coach to win a national title in the NCAA was here in Illinois. How passionate these athletes or former athletes, they're like in their 70s and 80s now, about coaches or what they've done here. They all come together. And the class of 77, I believe, I met them all the other day, and they honor their late coach Gary Winicky, and they love that guy so much. I want to be that guy. I want to be the person where all these guys come back to be like, this guy made me the best version of myself, won all these Olympic medals and all that. And then you've had athletes like Tanja Buford Bailey, an amazing coach now, come out of this place, coach at this place. So I like playing chess, and if every accomplished chess player, when they are in a match, their biggest gift is seeing beyond 2 moves at a time.
Right.
And I'm not a great chess player, but I love playing chess. All right. So I can see that if we were to look 2 moves ahead, that Illinois has that. It has that factor. And we were very fortunate to sign some folks to come mid-year that they could make a big difference. But that will be hopefully the beginning of more elite athletes to come in and look at this place, because it's as good as any. Like, folks talk about the location, and I try to turn it into a positive. You're between 3 large cities, one being the 3rd largest city in the US. With the NIL and all these resources you get now, you have all this support, all this networking right here in your backyard. You have an amazing coaching staff, which I don't even know what, I mean, I can't even, I'm pinching myself for the folks I was fortunate to attract. You have everything you need. So why not us? Why does it have to be somebody else? So I like to see Illinois getting up there. And that was part of my decision coming here, because I knew it wasn't easy, and per se a little bet to myself that can you do it at this place?
Right.
You did it at Georgia. Can you do it? If you can, it's a motivation where it's motivation is the sauce of life, or the salsa, or whatever you want to call it. If you're not motivated to have that challenge to keep you going, you're gonna deep fry yourself and you're gonna be a nobody. So for me, that was my that secret sauce that really needed to give me that extra push and that motivation. I don't care what people say, that why did you go there? Why did you go to a sexier place or whatever? This is a sexy place to me. That's what appeals to me, and I want to get it done. And when I see coaches taking and go back to AT, AT could have waited and taken, a more, and I bet you she had opportunities, but she took a chance on Vandy because you're not supposed to win there. And I think she will.
Yeah. I can tell you spent many, many years in the southeast of America, because you talked about the sauce of life. You talked about deep frying. I was like, oh yeah, you spent some time down in Georgia, buddy. I hear you. It's interesting. I don't have permission to tell the story, so I won't tell who the person is. But a deep mentor of mine, a former Big Ten head coach, once told me that the only other job that they would take is Illinois, because of all the advantages Illinois has. Many people have said for a long time, if Illinois would just get a border around the state of Illinois, because Illinois is one of the top 5, 6, 7 states for high school track and field. It's quite amazing. You don't have a rival school in state, right? So, Purdue has Indiana, Iowa has Iowa State, you get a recruit against, people grow up loving. You have Northwestern, who doesn't have a truck program, which needs to change, by the way. But you have such a great state. You are also known as an international recruiter, partly because of your own roots of where you came from. Do you have plans, that you and the staff have a plan to border around Illinois, or does it go, or is that not the first priority and there's a bigger priority there?
Yeah. No, it is. It is the first priority because you have to log in your backyard. It's like I'm looking to get a fence backyard now to fence my Doberman, because I don't want my Doberman to run around to the neighborhood. And we have a lot of Dobermans in the state of Illinois, so we have to keep that fence. But the problem is with Illinois is that we have to prove to the elite athletes of Illinois out of high school that don't look elsewhere. I mean, we're as good or better than these choices, because that was lost in the past few years. Yeah, I think Tanja might have been the last one that actually, all her pro group right now, they're all from around here.
Right.
Ashley Spencer and all these great athletes she's coaching. She got them and developed them, and we want to do the same thing in a way but they got to buy in. Where unfortunately we have to, or fortunately we have to start with some foreign transfers coming in mid-year, which that's what we did, and start making some noise where we catch their attention. Because let's be honest, we can't give a full scholarship to every single person, because that's what is required by every single one of these semi-talented athletes that could be. Zach Zymek is another great example.
Yeah.
Vincent DeCathley, from Chicago area, he went to Wisconsin. That's a guy that I would love to have had in college. But my buddy Nate Davis, an amazing coach, was smart enough, seen it, got it, developed it, and made him a world medalist, in the decathlon. So, but we have to show to these kids that, hey, look at us. Right. Because it goes both ways. It's not like us. So we brought back, or we're bringing, I don't know if he was here before, but we brought the junior day. We have 2 junior days every year where we're going to have all these juniors or younger come out, and we talk to them and show them around. And so we just got to spark the interest to show them, hey, we have a tremendous coaching staff. Look at these facilities. I mean, academically, this is a top 15, top 13 place in the country. We have one of the best business programs, entrepreneurship program in the world. I mean, why you're not looking at it? I mean, it's a vibrant place. You got folks from all over the world want to come here. So you have people all the way from Asia come out here to get this education, and that's in your backyard. Why would you want to go somewhere else? Because it's got glitter. I don't know what it is, but we're gonna change that. And I know the coaches. I mean, I've had a nice interview with the local My Split, and these guys love the place. I mean, they're eager to have the Illinois kids stay in Illinois. And as much as I want to give everybody full right, we got to be selective, and we got to get to a point that we make good choices for the program first. But at the same time, not let the ones that can make Illinois proud get away.
You mentioned bringing back, and I don't know if they've ever had. I don't follow it that close. Bringing back Junior Day. What other things that you can share with us? I know you don't want to. I'm not going to allow you even to peel the whole book cover back and show everything. But what other kind of thoughts and ideas do you have for the program? And does it include something that I'm going to say you were famous for, probably because a guy like me just geeked out on it. You had these amazing team banquets with unbelievable speakers. You mentioned JJK. I think she was one of your speakers. Ric Flair, people, was a speaker. Little controversial now. Herschel Walker, I think, was one of your speakers. He was a UGA alum, so that also makes sense there, right? Do you plan? Huh?
Chris Tucker was my favorite.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Do you plan on bringing that to Illinois as well?
Oh,
and
yeah.
If so, I should be your first speaker. I think you got to start, at the bottom before you get to the Tuckers of the world. But what other ideas do you think are you kind of trying to put into play for Illinois?
Yeah, it is. It is very important. Like you said, I mean, that's something I wanted to do to reward the student athletes on the team, and just kind of let them escape from the student athlete uniform, and then, had Dan O'Brien and Chris Tucker. Yeah. So Dan O'Brien started, he gave us this whole life long lesson and all that. And then Chris Tucker gets up there and then he picks on Matt Bowling, and because he's fast, and, it was such an amazing experience, for everybody, really. the bad thing is some of the younger ones, they didn't know who he was. So I made them watch Friday and Rush Hour. Yeah, you and I know, but so I made the whole team watch Rush Hour. But before he came. But and the good thing is when you create friendship with these folks, you know, they don't even charge you. I mean, they come out there and they want to do it. They want to do it for themselves and for the team. And that's what I really cherish about my friendship with these folks. Jackie, especially, you know, she made it happen, you know, in last minute. Ric Flair was a little bit simpler because his stepdaughter was on the cross country team. But Rick will do anything, you know. I still have the basketball shoes he gave me. And the funny thing is, he is like blue, so I couldn't wear it over there. Now I can. And inside the sole it says, I'm having a hard time keeping these alligators down, you know, just like his smack talk, you know, during his heydays. But we had a lot of fun with these kids, bringing these guys in, and here in this area, I think I will be able to do something similar. I just got to get a little creative. But as you know, and you're as good or better in those things, you know, you got to really market. You know, we have a saying in Greece: if you don't praise your own house, it will come down on your head. You know, free translation. So you got to really
say that in Greek. So in English, you said if you don't praise your own house, it'll come falling down. How do you actually say that in Greece for me?
Άμα δεν πενέψεις, το σπίτι σου θα πέσει να σε πλακώσει.
I'm not writing that down, by the way. I'm writing down your English translation.
Any Greek listeners will appreciate that. So it is a big thing, you know, where that's where this marketing, I mean, a lot of marketing professors probably know that, and they teach the roots of that saying, you know, because it is important to, when you have a great product, you have to promote it. If it's not a great product, don't bother, you know. Now, there's some gifted folks that can promote a faulty product, you know, and we see that a lot in, you know, Facebook ads and all that. But if you have, in 99.9% of universities or college programs are all great and have something great to promote, and it's so cool to see that. Even like smaller programs having, you know, produced, you know, Katie Najat, you know, the pole vaulter that won Olympic titles came from Ashland, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that's a big pride. I mean, and it's huge for the program and people that are looking to go to that program. So I like to do stuff like that. And for some people, it come off as arrogant or, you know, look at him bragging, but it's your product. You got to sell it. Otherwise, somebody else is going to sell theirs, and you're not going to sell any of yours.
Well, I got you your first keynote speaker, and this is a serious suggestion. Have you heard of the guy Spice Adams? No. He's hilarious. Go look up him on Twitter. He's hilarious. He's a track guy. So he's got a lot of funny, he's a comedian. He does a lot of funny track. He'll do like, warm-ups at the track, and, you know, he's a thrower, I think, back in the day. He's hilarious. He played for the Bears as well. So he's Illinois connection, but you got to go look up Spice Adams. Highly hilarious track guy, Illinois guy, as far as the Bear. I'm not sure where he actually went to school. I think he actually did go to school in the Chicagoland area, but there's your first kind of, he'd be good for you. Well, hey, Petros, as we wrap up today, you mentioned your coaching staff here. I don't do this enough. I need to do this more, but talk to us about your coaching staff, who you got. You did get some amazing humans that happen to be track coaches, which I just love. And then wrap us up with what got you excited about this first year coming up as the Illini coach.
Yeah. Clearly the staff I put together is the staff that really works for me in my culture and the way I want to do things in building Illinois into NCAA success. You know, the first move I did is, retain our cross-country coach, Sarah Halfman, that I believe she's a tremendous coach. She was the first person I spoke to. We spent about an hour and a half, and our minds were in sync first 5 minutes. So I was like, okay, that's someone that, I can help in terms of, providing a platform where she can lead her groups better. She can be the best version of herself in developing the talent, and she knows the state of Illinois better than all of us. So it was important for me to have somebody like that, and kind of be my insider, kind of help me navigate certain situations, whether it's campus administration or whatever. And then my second hire, it was Giovanni Small, a guy that he was on my first hires at Georgia. Also, one of the most hardworking, loyal people you meet. Had tremendous mentors. He has a great eye for talent, great way of developing talent. Kids love him. I mean, I've had, when he was my director of ops at Georgia, and when he left, I mean, I had the group of Olympians I've coached, Keturah RG and them, they were sad. I mean, they were sad that he left, and they gave me a hard time for the replacement. Like, who are you going to replace? They're going to, so to me, all those things are in my head. So when it was time to find that sprints coach that can actually bring good folks here and attract good talent here, there was not another name. That was the first and last name I had in my head. So that was my first hire. He and his family, you know, big, great human beings. He knows my system. He gets me. And like I said, just works really hard in every way. And then, you know, the next one that I think I'm probably the only head coach in the country that employs or has a pole vault position just for pole vault, nothing else. And I think I hit the jackpot with that one. You know, Dennis Mitchell, you know, obviously he was the head coach at Akron for 30 years. Not only has head coaching experience, but also got Akron to be top 10 in the country. So to me, that was probably the best thing. Now, I had to get him out of retirement because he announced his retirement at Akron. And I called him actually to ask him for references, who I think is a good coach out there. And he gave me some names. He was very thorough. And then I said, hey, can you, like, which one of these guys is just like you? Because I didn't know he would consider it. And
he's
then
retired.
Next day he called me and was like, hey, I talked with my wife, and it's like, are you interested in me? I said, you kidding me? And, you know, he drove down the next day and we made a deal. But pole vault to me is very important. And for many ways, many reasons, I feel if you have the right place, the right coach in place, that's a way that can produce a lot of NCAA points and a lot of success. It's a fun event. It's very crowd engaging. I'm gonna spiel some of our happenings here. We're gonna have a band play at our like a live band, which the lead singer was a 225 high jumper. So I'm not gonna say names and all that. You can find it, but so I want to showcase the pole vault while these guys are playing. They're gonna be playing right next to the pit. Which, you know, I can't wait for these race runways, by the way. I'm getting for you guys. But so it's going to put on a show and create some environment where I want this to be like a pole vault mecca. And we had a similar thing going at Georgia with Russ Johnson, another great pole vault coach that, you know, I miss dearly, because he was not just a pole vault coach, but he was also a PT, physical therapist, which he was he was my right-hand guy. Probably one of the best hires I'm proud of myself in making. But anyway, so going into talking with Dennis, I was really excited because he has the reputation. He coached 2 world champions. He coached all these NCAA champions, got the team. So to me, not only he's an amazing pole vault coach and human, but also he can help me as an advisor in many ways. So I think I hit the jackpot with him, and then I hit another jackpot when I got JC Lambert, you know, throws coach that, you know, coach his own wife to a world champion title. So not only that guy knows the state of Illinois better than anybody, but he can develop anybody. I mean, the guy, just his personality, his wife's personality as both coaches and recruiters and ambassadors of the state. And My gosh, I mean, I'm just so excited about him and what he brings to the table, and what he can do for us, and for himself, really, because I think he's the next John Smith, his mentor,
Yep.
which, he goes under the radar. I think that guy is the best throws coach in the country. I don't care about all this social media gurus and all that. I think
Yeah.
John Smith is probably the best throws coach out there.
I,
And
I would tend to agree. I thought JC, when you announced JC, I was like, oh, this is a hidden gem that shouldn't be hidden, because he's done an amazing job at Carbondale. He has an amazing pedigree from Connie and John being his coaches.
yeah,
He's no flash, but he's all cash, baby. He gets it done,
yeah,
and
and
that's going to be
he
a big one.
yeah, his reputation precedes him. And then, I hire Sarah Glidden, a youngster, former heptathlete up until last year. But people don't understand that not only Sarah brings like the younger connection with the student athlete and the more modernized approach, the positive, positive reinforcement, but also she was a D3 National Coach of the Year. I don't know if you knew that, but she
Oh,
can coach. So that's somebody that I brought in to personally mentor and share all my secrets. And eventually, just let her run the show. But for now, she is my right hand person in terms of really keeping the recruiting intact with the jumps and combined events, kind of helping with everything, and kind of be the connection with Juanita Sanchez, a rock star director of operations I have. That she's a tireless worker, a very kind human that really cares for the program, loves our coaches. So this staff as a group works real well together. So let's say I learned a lot from my mistakes in the past and a lot from my slumdog hires. So I thought that I try to mesh all this, and hopefully I can keep these folks together for a long time.
Yeah, that's another aspect of head coaching we don't talk about, is that consistency within your staff, which helps with the consistency with your coaching of the athletes and recruiting, et cetera. Yeah. Petros, man, I've got you to 10 o'clock, and it is 10 o'clock on the dot, baby. We did it. We nailed it. I feel like I was coached really well by you. I hit the time I was supposed to hit, coach, man. Petros, man, we're totally excited to have you here in Champaign. I've known you for a long time, part of your career. And like I said, consider you a friend as well as, a dear customer. Again, we're just so thankful for you. So it's great to have you in Champaign and have you living in our west side neck of the woods over in Muhammad as well. I have to come check out that Doberman and in the garage when you get that all set up, because I know you will, man.
Working on
I
it.
know you will. I know you will. But again, congratulations, becoming the new director here at the University of Illinois. You have put together an amazing staff. We're excited. We have a vested interest that Illinois track is good. We it's our DNA as far as track, and then right here in Champaign. So we're excited. We're excited to see indoor season, outdoor season, and just the layering of what is 2024, what is 2025, 2026. Just excited for what you're going to put out there on the track.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it will take time, but it is very exciting to do this with my staff, and hopefully look back on one day and be like, hey, look what we've done together, and they say you want to go far. If you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together. So
That's it.
that's something that you learn as you age, because as youngsters, we think we can do everything by ourselves, but no, you need good help, and I think I got it.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, thank you for being here, man, Petros. The most valuable thing that you can ever give us, and you give us a lot, my friend, is your time. And I know how busy you are. So thank you again, just for being here, being so humble and so authentic. I think there was a lot of value given for coaches that are listening today that want to be a head coach, that think they want to be a head coach, that want to excel. And I really think this lesson of why not us, I just kind of came through. You kind of said it without even thinking about it in the different stops too. You're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, why not us? Why can't we do this here? And I'm just excited. It's kind of a refreshing thing for me as on my own self, as well as far as what I do here at Gill. So I appreciate that. And again, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. I will.
That's it, baby. Well, thank you for being here. Join us next week. I hope you will. I hope you got a lot of value, and I hope you'll join us next week. We're going to do it all over again and have another amazing rock star just like Petros here. And again, thank you for listening to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. Have a good one.